finally got my hands on the 2022 Volvo S90 sedan. This is a car that I've been wanting to check out because I like Volvo. They have an interesting demeanor going on compared to your ordinary everyday German saloon car, right? Their SUVs are obviously what's dominant, and that's just what everybody buys, but I think the money should be going to this thing here. We'll talk a little bit about that later. But let's talk about the exterior first and kind of what this is. Well, it's their flagship vehicle that Volvo makes. It's around 200 inches long, so it's not quite trying to compete with the BMW 7 Series, the S-Class, or the Audi A6, or even the Lexus LS500. It's just the largest mid-size luxury car that you can possibly get. So think of the BMW 5 Series, the A6, the E-Class, and even the Lexus ES, right? And as we're about to see in the interior segment, this has a healthy amount of rear legroom, which is fantastic to see. But again, more on that later. The looks of this, it really reminds me of the Polestar 1. That's what this thing reminds me of, just like a four-door version of it. Many people gawk and stare over that, but this has a handsome look to it. And in fact, people do seem to take notice to it out in traffic. I think most Volvos look great. They're pretty timeless, and this follows suit. It just doesn't have the swagger of some of the European rivals. That's the main thing. So if that's what you're looking for, then you're not really going to find that here. People aren't really looking at you with envy. They're not really lusting over this. This is just a nice premium car that's free from any form of douchebaggery. So if that's what you like, well, go ahead. But if you want that pedigree, that brand cachet, then maybe go with the BMW or a Mercedes-Benz product. But enough of that. You let me know in the comment section below what you think of the looks of this car or the appeal of it. Let's transition over into this driving segment now. There's no sport modes, there's no comfort modes, there's just one mode, and that's an intelligent mode that Volvo has come up with, and I think that's brilliant. I really despise this obsession with sport mode buttons. People really think when they push that sport mode in their Kia Optima that it really turns into like a sports car or something. That's absurd, and that's almost disgusting to me that people think that that button truly makes a drastic difference in their car. All it does is put you into a lower gear and you're wasting more fuel. I can't believe people aren't seeing that. There's very few cars in this world where the sport mode truly makes a difference. So in this, they just have an intelligent mode. Volvo determined that nobody plays with the drive mode selection anyway, so let's just make the vehicle respond and react to the driver. So if you're driving a little bit more spirited, then that's just how the vehicle will respond. And if you're driving more mellow, everything else will be set to a mellow way, right? We have here a 2-liter 4-cylinder that's just overcomplicated as usual. We have the 48-volt mild hybrid system. This is kind of their base engine. And this is the B6 trim level with the Inscription package on it. This particular vehicle produces 295 horsepower, 310 pounds-feet of torque. It's made it to this 8-speed transmission. Vehicle is built in China, but as we're about to see in the interior segment, there's no issues with quality. The engine is Swedish, the transmission is Japanese, in case you were interested. Vehicle stickers for $66,000. We'll talk about if that price tag is merited or not. It starts at around $50K, which is more reasonable, and that's kind of what this thing should cost. But with the 48-volt mild hybrid system, you've seen this in many other vehicles before, it does kind of eliminate turbo lag when you're at a stop. It's very impressive in that regards. But when you're up and moving, there is kind of a subtle delay, but it's really not bad for the most part. This is a very smooth engine, actually. I was very impressed with that. But in my opinion, Volvo is a company that should go full EV. When I did my Tesla Plaid review, when I said daily drivers should kind of be EVs, I really had Volvo in mind specifically because they've been screwing around with this overcomplicated 4-cylinder setup for eons now. This is like a 5-year-old car at this point. I'm pretty sure this is due for a refresh very soon. They're probably going to refresh the XC90 first and then this, because that's what sells more, the XC90. So that's another thing to keep in mind. If you are going to be buying this, this is probably going to be the last model year. There might be a 2023. But there's nothing inherently wrong with this 4-cylinder. It's just that, you know, this is like a near 70K car. I mean, it should have at least like a V6 or an inline 6, something like that, but Volvo doesn't invest in that. So really, in my opinion, the Polestar 2 is probably the Volvo of choice. I get that that's not a Volvo, but, you know, Polestar, you know, I think Volvo owns like 49% of it. Or even the XC40 fully electric. I genuinely do think that's the best way for Volvo to go, but objectively, there's nothing wrong with this 4-cylinder. It's just not very characteristic of a car that's a flagship sedan of this price category, but it is what it is. It's smooth, it's quick enough, it pulls fine even on the highway. More importantly, though, is ride quality. That is the biggest highlight with this S90. I tested the XC60, really disappointed with the ride quality in that it really kind of flopped around the occupants, had this jostling effect in the suspension. Going over some jittery bumps, you kind of notice them a little bit, but that's totally appropriate. I think that's really fine. There's no 4-corner air suspension available on this car, only on the XC90 is that available. This just has like the rear suspension leveling thing going on, that's all it has. But it does have double wishbones up in the front, and it's really impressive from a handling perspective, ride quality, all that good stuff. It's here. It's mainly the way it swallows up the larger bumps, if you want to call it a speed bump, speed hump, whatever it is. The way it just swallows that up, that's the most impressive thing I've ever seen. No car that I've tested swallows up those larger bumps as well as this does, at least for around this price category. Obviously, when you step up to the proper S-classes and things, it gets better, but that's where this vehicle really shines. And from a handling perspective, I love how this doesn't tear apart its front end, okay, when you make a turn, left-hand turn, right-hand turn. It always has this neutral, balanced demeanor to it, almost like Audi-esque in the way that it responds. It has like this nimbleness to it, despite being such a large vehicle. It masks its weight, its size so well. It's got a feeling that the center of gravity is very low in this. This thing weighs around 4,300 pounds, which again, not bad for a vehicle of this size. It's also got the all-wheel drive, so don't forget that. But I like how balanced it feels for everyday handling. Now, of course, when you try to drive it like a sports car, it's going to disappoint. For everyday, daily drivability, this is so exceptional. My only real con with the way it drives is wind noise. I think Volvo can work on their wind noise, particularly out on the highway. Tire noise is fine, but wind noise could be a little bit better. It's got double pane glass in all 4 windows, actually, even in the rear. I mean, it's very quiet for the most part, especially around town. There's hardly any noise coming through. It's such a tranquil experience driving this thing around. But let's be honest, compared to, well, the competitors, the 5 Series, the E-Class, as I already mentioned, those cars have far more brand cachet, right? It's the far more prestigious choice over a Volvo. Now I get it, Volvo is known for safety, right? But to be honest, there's a lot of cars that are safe nowadays. Just about every BMW, every Benz, hell, even Hyundais and Kias. You can get a new Hyundai Accent, a Kia Rio, subcompact cars less than 20 grand. Even those are safe nowadays. So Volvo is not the only car company to do safety, but it's nice that Volvo focuses on that. But for $66,000, why would you choose this? Well, first of all, I wouldn't spec it up to that level. I would actually I would try to get the momentum, and I would try to get the 19-inch wheels, but I think to get this Bowers and Wilkins sound system, you might have to step up to the Inscription. But anyway, it's going to be around $60,000 the way I would spec it, because I got to have this Bowers and Wilkins sound system. I would just skip the 20-inch wheels. I would skip this little, crystal ball shifter. It's not necessary. Just a regular leather-wrapped shifter is fine for me. But I'll talk about this Bowers and Wilkins in the interior segment. I think over the 4-cylinder models, maybe outside of the BMW 530i, I would probably choose this. But really, as I've stated multiple times, my daily driver of choice is going to be a Lexus ES300H. That thing is like 50 grand, pretty much fully loaded outside of like the stupid navigation package and the heads-up display. Outside of those things, it's about 51 grand. Mark Levinson audio, does like 40 mpg both in the city and the highway. Despite Volvo's attempts at making an overcomplicated 4-cylinder setup, I mean, it's rated to do 23 in the city and 31 on the highway, which is about what I get. I get around 21 in the city and 30 on the highway. So that's good, but again, it's not 40 mpg in the city and 40 on the highway. Now, there is a recharge model, the plug-in hybrid, which will do 38 miles of pure electric driving, which is fantastic. But I think that engine actually utilizes a true supercharger, so it's turbo and supercharged, whereas this actually has an electric supercharger. So I think this is a better engine setup, but you know, if you want the plug-in hybrid, then that's kind of how Volvo has that engine set up for you. It actually has the real supercharger in it that's belt driven, and that's going to cost you well over $60,000 even starting, I believe. That's what I'm saying. If I was actually shopping for a Volvo product, it would genuinely be the Polestar 2. I think it looks amazing. It's full EV, does like 250 miles of range. That's genuinely what I would go for, and it's around 56 grand with all the options that I would personally get. I think it leases for $750 a month, everything out the door, taxes, fees, all the nonsense. That's personally what I would go for, but this is a very impressive vehicle. This is my most favorite Volvo that I've tested so far amongst the XC40, XC60, and this S90. I have not tried an XC90 yet. My access is terrible in North Carolina to vehicles, so I've never had a chance to check that out, but I definitely want to. This S90 though, I would choose this over all of the other like XC60 type of vehicles. There's also a V90. I'm surprised they even make that, considering the fact that nobody buys station wagons. You know, the car people, car enthusiasts anyway, they talk a good game, but they don't buy anything. And that's why there's no wagons available really, and even sedans are disappearing. So with that established, let's go ahead and let's move on into the interior segment now. Okay, done driving it. Let's talk about this interior space. I'm going to keep this brief because I've covered this mostly in the XC60 as well. So you can go watch that. Interior space, I love it. It's such a fantastic place to spend time. I love the wood. I like the aluminum. I like the leather quality. Everything about it is truly fantastic. One of the best interior spaces that you can get for under $100,000, no doubt about it. That being said, the Lexus ES interior is also amazing for the price. That car has a near flagship level quality to it, driving wise and interior wise. Plus it gets 40 mpg. So you see why that's my daily driver of choice for around 50K. Anyway, enough of that Lexus. Let's talk about this. Everything feels solid in here. Everything has a tightness to it, the way that it's put together. Biggest highlight, Bowers Wilkins sound system. One of the best in the business. Worth paying $3,200 or $3,400 for. It's very reminiscent to my ear of the Mercedes Burmester sound system. That's kind of what it reminds me of. Very impressive. Definitely option that in. Seats are exceptionally comfortable. This is the type of car where you can do a long journey in this and you'll be super satisfied. This is a very comfortable space. These seats are fantastic. Almost reminds me of like the Lincoln seats, but I think this is a little bit more premium. I love the plushness of it. There's a little Swedish flag on the passenger seat here, so you can play with that. Plenty of adjustability. The lumbar is great. Again, fantastic place to spend time. You can be a very tall individual, fit in here, no problem. You have leg room, headroom, everything is here in abundance. And this infotainment is a 9-inch vertical screen, far superior to like the Ford vertical screen. They actually did a good job implementing this. It's not without its quirks though. I'm not a big fan of just implementing everything into the touchscreen. I want to see some more physical buttons. People say that you can use the freaking voice command thing. It's an obtuse concept to me that I have to speak to the vehicle to get things done. I would rather just press a button. It's far less distracting. It's very easy to just hit the wrong thing on this little touchscreen, so something to keep in mind there. But it reacts well There's no Apple CarPlay or anything like that. It's just an Android screen with the Google Maps. I think Apple CarPlay is coming. They keep saying that there's an update for it, an over-the-air update, because that's how this thing gets updated. But it hasn't come yet, so it is what it is. You have a wireless charging pad here. I would skip this gear lever knob option, not necessary. Electronic parking brake, 2 little cup holders. The gauge cluster is simplistic, shows you some fantastic information. Shows you the Google Maps there as well. This is a 12.3-inch screen. No problems. You have a bit of space in the center armrest. The glove box is a con for me. It opens randomly. It doesn't latch properly. That's the only quality control issue I've managed to find with this Volvo S90, just so you know. You have a panoramic sunroof here, which is great. Rear legroom is so plentiful. I have never been this comfortable in the back of an SUV ever. I've harped on this multiple times. I've tested so many SUVs, the XC60, little X3, X5 BMWs. All these vehicles don't really have the level of legroom that this offers you. Sedans always have a fantastic level of rear legroom space, except for the Mercedes E-Class. The E-Class rear legroom is like sitting in the back of a subcompact almost. I have no idea what they were thinking. There's no space in the back of that sedan. That's kind of the reason why you consider this. It's not quite the size of a flagship sedan, so it's easy to drive, easy to place on the road, yet it offers like near S-Class or 7 Series levels of rear legroom in a more petite package. It's very impressive. And there's actually a lot of toys and gadgets to play with back there, but only for the person sitting behind the passenger. Don't know why the person sitting behind the driver's seat doesn't get the same levels of adjustability and buttons to play with, but you can control the panoramic sunroof. You can open and close it from back there, sitting behind the passenger seat. Okay, that person. They can also play with the sunshades. There's one in the back. There's ones on the sides if you want to play with that. Again, person sitting behind the driver's seat doesn't get nearly as much gadgets to play with. They can just roll their window down. That's about it. There's also a little screen back there for you to play with to turn on your heated and cooled seats, your HVAC. They should have put that in the center console, because you can flip down the middle portion and there is some storage there, some cup holders. They should have put that screen there because it's kind of annoying reaching over to play with that screen in the front for your HVAC. But hey, at least you have those controls there if you want. The trunk space is very good. It's very deep. However, it's not a very tall trunk space, if that makes sense. That's the only con. But there is a spare tire back there, which is very impressive. Not too many European vehicles offer a spare tire. Is this a buy? I mean, in the Volvo lineup, in the traditional engine car setup that they have, this is probably my most favorite. I think even without having driven the XC90, I feel like this would be a far superior driving experience. The center of gravity is low. It's got the proper driving demeanor. It's got a fantastic interior space. It's quiet for the most part. It's so comfortable. Swallows up the larger bumps. You just feel the little bumps slightly, but hey, getting the 19-inch wheels can really help out with that. I think that would be a really supreme ride quality. But really, the main reason why I personally can't recommend it is because the Lexus ES300H exists, 40 mpg, $10,000 to $15,000 cheaper than this. It's going to have amazing resale value, great dealership support. I mean, yeah, you can see why I'm so high on that vehicle. But if you have to have a European vehicle, if you just love Volvo, this is fantastic. But look into the Polestar 2 as well. Just skip the performance package thing with the Olean dampers and just get it for around $56,000. That can be really amazing, actually. Also, the regular XC40 fully electric model, something to consider, because I genuinely do think having a full EV is superior to having like a 4-cylinder thing like this. Just my thoughts on the matter. But this is a very nice car. I've really enjoyed it. Far superior to the XC60 that I tested. Far better ride quality, handling demeanor, everything about it so much smoother, a little bit quicker as well. I just like the way everything reacts in here. My only real con, of course, is the slight bit of wind noise past 70 miles an hour, and obviously this glove box that seems to randomly open. Outside of that, really like this Volvo. Love the character. I think it's a cool car. Hopefully this review was valuable to someone. Thanks again for watching. Take care and goodbye.